Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today, back from holiday, it's Chris Hamill and Patrick van Straten, as usual. And we're going to dive straight in with Apollo GTR's question. And he has asked, will Dusan Tadic get a summer transfer to a top 5 league? And if so, who? But before we dive into that, if you are new to Eurofootball Daily, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a video. Chris, what are your thoughts on Dusan Tadic and his incredible year?
Okay, well, this is quite a strange question, but we'll entertain it. I mean, I'm very, very sceptical that a team is going to come in for a 30-year-old to the tune of, 30-40 million pounds, which is perhaps what he's worth to Ajax at this point, especially when they're going to have such a exodus this summer, with a hell of a lot of young talent parting ways. But let's revisit the season he's just had and explore why a team, might not think paying over the odds is totally out of the question. So he joined from Southampton for what is now regarded as a hell of a bargain at 11.4 million euros, around a quarter of the price that Gylfi Sigurdsson cost Everton. Now, he's played across that whole front line over the course of the campaign, taking Neres's places on occasion, but he's predominantly played out on the left, hasn't he? 34 goals and 21 assists in 51 games in all competitions. So I think they've scored 160 goals this campaign, the first Dutch side to do so, and he's contributed to almost a third of that. So hugely influential. Goes without saying when you're putting up those sort of numbers. 24 goals and 12 assists in the Eredivisie alone, averaging a goal every 114 minutes. 9 goals and 7 assists in 15 UCL games, because of course they had to qualify. It began way before the group stages, and he was helping them secure a place even then. Only Messi on 13 has been involved in more UCL goals, level with Mbappe. Now, his Eredivisie stats look like this per 90, 2.2 shots, which is pretty solid for a winger, but perhaps lends itself to the opinion that in order to score 24 goals, he's maybe had the rub of the green. 2.8 key passes, which is exceptional, and 1.5 dribbles, which is pretty solid. UCL stats, 1.6 shots, 2.9 key passes. Again, when you look at these, when you interrogate the numbers, it would suggest he has been an exceptional creator this term, and his spectacular goals on the more decisive end of things is maybe a little unsustainable. But if anything, he's probably come to the fore more so in Europe, and we saw him rip it up in the Bernabeu, didn't we? Just selling people, sending them for hot dogs even. Now, his 2.9 key passes is more this term than Christian Eriksen, Luis Suarez and Raheem Sterling, which puts him in pretty good playmaker company, doesn't it? But now you've got the numbers, now we've broke it down, let's actually approach how realistic it would be getting him out of Ajax, or whether he'd want to even leave Ajax, Pato, because it seems like with the money they're going to bring in, they'll want, a sense of continuity, and they'll want to hold on to someone like Tadic.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to happen. This is like a move from the past. Dusan Tadic has already had his move to a top 5 league, and he was pretty good the first couple of seasons there, and probably got out at exactly the right time. And now it looks like he's going to win a title this season. He could win a cup. He could win the Champions League. I don't really know if a club big enough to offer him those opportunities comes in for him. And I don't see why Ajax would let him go. Ajax have an agreement with young players, right? Which is they develop you. They wait until you're good enough to go to a bigger club, and then they sell you at a huge profit. It's not quite the same with these older guys they've brought in. Daley Blind and Dusan Tadic have gone back there because they know that they can play it at a high level. They can play it in the Champions League. They'll get paid reasonably well because Ajax have massively boosted their wage bill in the last couple of seasons. And then it's much more prestigious than it is to play for a mid-table club in, say, England or Germany. Plus, I don't really know where he'd be expected to play. I mean, where he's thrived this season is kind of as something between a forward and a 10. He's not playing off the wing at all. 9, yeah. He's not playing off the wing at all. Like, he's not really playing as a centre forward at all. What they seem to do is almost play without a forward, and it reminds me of those old Roma teams with Totti, where they pretty much play a bunch of attacking midfielders with no focal point, and they'd all interchange. So if you sign him now, what are you signing him as? To play him as a 10? To play him off the right, which is how he played when he was at Twente and when he first went to Southampton? Are you going to play him as a centre forward? Because what's really getting, the attention from the international press has been his goal scoring. But I don't think he scores these goals in a team which isn't kind of perfectly calibrated in the way that this one is. And who knows, Ajax may not even be this good next season, even if they were to keep all their talent. Sometimes you just have a magical campaign. So does Dusan Tadic deserve to be playing for a bigger club? I suppose you could argue yes, but right now, I mean, he's playing for one of the best teams in Europe. So I'm not really sure what I'm being asked to root for here.
Yeah.
Like, do I want him to go to, say, an Arsenal? Not really. He's playing at a higher level.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I do think that clubs could do with him because I don't think it will cost a lot of money. I think he'll be, if he was 11 million last time, I think it'll be max 20, considering he's turning 31 in November. I mean, someone like Spurs, Fernando Llorente is now 34. Could they bring in Dusan Tadic as a backup to Harry Kane, playing in a false 9 role? Llorente's been pretty useful in patches this term. I think he's got 8 goals and 5 assists in about 29 games. He's not getting any younger. If they played him as a false 9 when Kane was out, then they could play Son on the left. But Son's been great stepping in for Kane. There's no real clear option in the Premier League. And interestingly, he was talking to Andy van der Meijden, who's now set up his own YouTube channel. You might remember him from the past in Everton and made some questionable lifestyle choices at various points as well. And he said that he didn't want to come back to the Premier League. He didn't feel like you got enough protection from the referees. He thought his Southampton team slowly got worse and worse over his time there. So the Premier League doesn't seem like a natural fit.
But he can say that now he's enjoying life so much at Ajax. And I think if you get 300 million for De Jong and De Ligt, then there's no way you part ways with Tadic, who, even if he contributed to half the goals he did this season, next season for 20 mil.
Yeah, I do think they've got alternatives in the attacking area, though. Do they really? Donny van der Beek, his development. Kasper Dolberg hasn't had enough game time this year for someone who's looking to develop. Maybe if they get 20 to 25 million, they'll be like, fine, Tadic, you had a great year. This is the time to sell, really. Especially as he's also known as a bit of a troublemaker, particularly from his Southampton days. Don't know whether that's particularly verified, but that's what I was reading when I was reading these Southampton blogs this morning. So we'll see. Maybe a move to Italy as well. If Inter Milan lose Mauro Icardi, they really need a lot of goal scoring. I think Perisic is on 7, Lautaro Martinez is on 6.
But he's not going to give you that. Like, Tadic has scored a lot of goals this season. There's no other period in his career when he's done that. No other period.
I think he got double figures in 1 year in his Premier League.
I think he did in one. No, I don't think he did.
Yeah, I think it's 23 and 160, something for Southampton.
And he was taking pens then as well. Like, you don't say, oh, we're going to lose Mauro Icardi, who has consistently been a kind of 0.6, 0.7 XG per 90 striker, and we'll bring in Dusan Tadic, who is an ageing number 10.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's an out-and-out replacement for Icardi. I just think they could do with him around the squad. But yeah, it's maybe a bit of a long shot. If Borussia Mönchengladbach lose Torgan Hazard this summer, maybe they could bring in someone like Tadic. I can't really see him going to a club competing at the top end of the Champions League, and if he wants to do that, he should probably stay at Ajax. But a club that's sort of flirting with Champions League qualification, like a Borussia Mönchengladbach, wouldn't be the worst move for him.
Southampton could have done with him, I'll tell you that. They've got no creators in that squad. Their 2 best players, well, their 3 best players over the last 10 years, pretty much, was Sadio Mane, Dusan Tadic, and Virgil van Dijk. And they've all gone, and they've at least tried to replace Van Dijk, and they've done nothing to replace Mane and Tadic. So, they could have done with
Nathan
a guy
Redmond could really use some help, couldn't he?
Yeah, they could have done with a guy who could create 3 chances a game. Like, that actually sounds quite useful for a club which literally cannot score.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he'd probably prosper in a Hasenhüttl system. He enjoyed his first couple of years under Koeman, didn't he? I think he said as much. They had a bit of that was Southampton's high point in the last decade. Was he there when Pochettino was there?
No, I think he came just as Koeman arrived from FC Twente, I think.
So, yeah, unfortunately he ended his tenure in the Premierships with more defence-minded, pragmatic managers. But I think there's zero point going in for him if you're a Champions League club, considering I think his value to Ajax is in excess of 40 million euros.
Fair. Going on to the rest of Ajax's squad, Pat, where do you think De Ligt will end up and where do you think he should go for his own future?
Well, we talked about this a little bit on Sunday Vibes, I think. We were kind of unsure about where he should end up, but it looks like it'll be Barcelona, though you could argue that Liverpool would actually be a better landing spot for him. As for other players, it remains to be seen. They're bringing in it's about 70 million, 80 million euros for Frenkie de Jong. They'll probably get at least the same for De Ligt. So they don't need to sell other people, but I could imagine that they decide to kind of clean house and totally rebuild this summer. David Neres, maybe if he goes for 40 mil as well, that would be interesting. And Tagliafico might be on his way out too.
Well, I was going to say, if you're looking for someone that contributes, to a kind of combined 0.6, 0.7 goal and assist per game, then David Neres, 21, 22, sort of plays out wide predominantly, doesn't he? But I could almost see him coming inside as a number 10. And maybe his future kind of lies in the Premier League. He's very kind of pacey, direct, good off the ball movement, not the most adventurous passer from what I've seen, and not very kind of wholly adept at link-up play, but there's a lot of strings to add to his bow. So he's probably a more viable move if you're looking for a prolific wide man come central attacking figure
with a bigger future as well. Well, longer future anyway. I've seen him heavily linked with Dortmund as well recently. I think if they lose Jadon Sancho, that'd be a great move for them. Although replacing Sancho's output this season will be incredibly difficult. But yeah, that's our take on Dusan Tadic. Basically, we think he should stay. Moving on to big match preview. So the game we are previewing this weekend takes place at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow, and it's Dortmund who host Schalke in the 138th Ruhr Derby. Massive game for both sides. Dortmund are a point behind Bayern Munich, who play Nuremberg on Sunday. They've got 6 games to play. They've also got a far inferior goal difference, -14 at this stage, which is a slight worry. But they go into this game in reasonable form. That's Dortmund. Favre's men have won 5 of their last 6. Their only defeat was that 5-0 drubbing at the hands of Bayern away from home. Their last 2 results were a 2-1 win at home to Mainz. I think that was Jadon Sancho with both goals. And then they beat Freiburg 4-0 away from home last weekend with goals from Sancho, Götze, Royce and an 87th minute Alcacer pen. So they go into this in reasonable form, Chris, but who are the men to watch out for in this game?
Yeah, well, I've been on my travels, haven't I, mate? So still need to brush up on my Bundesliga knowledge, but the Bavarians have finally got their noses in front. I can't see them surrendering the title at this point. They've been the better team across the course of the season, as the numbers have bared out, and it's bared out pretty well for our bets. Can't see Dortmund pipping them to the post, but key men remain, it's that triumvirate, isn't it, of Paco, of Jadon Sancho, of Royce. They've been consistent all season, and it's been great to see a degree of consistency from Marco Royce, because he now has 16 goals and 8 assists in just 25 Bundesliga games, and that is actually 2 more than his last 2 seasons combined. We all wanted him to have this sort of season. It'd be a great kind of fairy tale end to his career if Dortmund did win the league, which is one of the reasons that I certainly wouldn't begrudge BVB the title. However, it doesn't look like his 16 goals as well, which equals his best tally at the club since 2013-14, is going to be enough, like I said. Jadon Sancho, nice to see that he's not just been a flash in the pan at various points throughout the season. So tops the competition's assist charts with 13 and is completing 3.1 dribbles per game. So that's out of the top 5, but certainly I think approaching top 10. He's also the youngest player to have scored 11 plus goals in Bundesliga history and has won 21 points for the club with his contributions alone, which is actually a league high. Now, Paco scoring at a rate which cannot be sustained, but it's been very enjoyable nonetheless to watch this campaign. 17 goals in 20 games this season with an XG of 9.7, so that's 7.3 difference. So there has been goals that, like we've said, come from outside the area. He scored a couple of free kicks, hasn't he? Things that we didn't expect to see from Paco. We might not see again as consistently next season, but long may it continue. Great fun to watch. Witsel as well, just to round off the key men. He's won 274 duels this season and has a team high pass accuracy of 94%, so really provided solidity at the base of that midfield. And we were wrong in the sense that, we thought his best days were behind him, questioned his move from China, from Russia, but he's really come to the fore. And I think this season puts a lot of youngsters in really good stead for next campaign. So maybe the title challenge has come 1 year too soon. So you've got the likes of Akanji in there, Diallo, Zagadou, who we've spoke about before. They've not been able to sustain those impressive defensive performances they put in for the first half of the campaign, but only in the face of a resurgent Bayern. Hey, now Pato, I've got to admit my Schalke knowledge is very minimal. But they have been horrendous this campaign, haven't they? Been beat by Hoffenheim pretty comprehensively recently too, 5-2 I think it was. Any hope for them going into this match?
Not really. I mean, if you know that they're bad, you pretty much know that they're all there is to know about Schalke. I mean, like, they were very lucky to finish second last season. I don't think they were particularly good, and this season, bad again. I think in their last 6 games, they've conceded 13 goals. They've won 1 and lost 4 of those. But really, it's the relegation battle, or the battle for that, I guess, that playoff relegation spot is between them and Stuttgart at the moment. And Stuttgart are 6 points behind, and they've got Gladbach this weekend, so kind of a tough game for them too. Which means that even if Schalke lose, they might still have a bit of breathing space, but they need to make sure that they keep that barrier between them, because on the last day of the season, they play Stuttgart. So if the gap is under 3 points, then it could get really tasty. At the moment, they've got the 6 point gap, and they've also got a plus 20 goal difference over Stuttgart. So in real terms, that's like having a 7 point gap. But their top scorer is still Caligiuri, I think, who's got 5 league goals this season.
Yeah, I think 3 of them were penalties.
You just look at them and you think, there's no attacking skill in this team. Like, there's not even real defensive solidity in the way there was last season, which actually, as much as we've criticised him, like Max Meyer did give them that. So, I don't know. To be honest, if they got relegated, have they been one of the 3 worst sides in the league? Maybe not, but they've been exceptionally boring. And also, when you look at the resources they have versus a lot of the smaller sides, you do sort of feel like they've done such a terrible job that maybe getting relegated wouldn't be the worst thing. It's like Hamburg. Hamburg did this for years, where they constantly beat the drop, finishing in the playoff relegation spot again and again and again. And they just kind of needed to go down to break the cycle eventually, I think. Kind of like Sunderland.
I was just about to say, sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
But, Schalke could, do a double drop if they end up going down. I mean, it's happened to better clubs. So
better clubs.
We'll see. But yeah, Schalke, I think they're a bit of a mess last summer. I think they got rid of too many defensive stalwarts. Naldo played every minute last year. They got rid of him. This January to Monaco, they also obviously sold Tilo Kehrer as well. Goretzka, Meyer left. Christian Heidel, their sporting director, didn't know which way was up or down. Absolute mess. And yeah, you'd expect Dortmund to be heavy favourites going to this.
Is Tedesco still in charge?
No, Tedesco got fired after they lost to Man City.
They're bringing in David Moyes?
No, they brought in Hoob Stevens for his 3rd spell in charge on a caretaker basis to the end of the year. But yeah, Dortmund have scored at least 2 goals in their last 15 home matches, and they've won 9 of their last 10 at home. But these have, the Ruhr Derby does throw up some surprise results. I mean, I remember that 4-4 draw. I think that was last year as well. There's been some awesome games in the past. So guys, if you had to put your money where your mouth is, we're clearly going for a Dortmund win by the sounds of it. But Pat, score prediction.
Well, I mean, Dortmund will win, but I mean, I still don't think Dortmund are even the 2nd best team in the Bundesliga this season. So I guess they'll win, but they're not going to win the league. So, I don't know, 3-0. Who cares?
Christopher?
5-1.
5-1, wow.
Wow.
I'll go, I don't know why, just to be different, shock 2-2 draw. And we'll move on to some quickfire questions now. So the first quickfire question comes in from @Vito_C_25, and he or she asks, if Spurs win the Champions League / make the final, how does it change their squad going forward, assuming they actually buy or sell in the summer window? Chris, what are your thoughts on Spurs and their summer business?
A couple of controversial scenarios have arisen of late. So, a cash-strapped Spurs, they have a brand spanking new stadium. They've exceeded expectations in the Champions League. If they go on to win that, will that change their standing in the eyes of top players? Perhaps not. And will their wage structure be increased as a result? Perhaps not. I think top whack, they're offering 200k, aren't they, per week, and that is to the likes of Harry Kane and probably
as much as that?
And probably Christian Eriksen. Yeah, they've only just changed it, haven't they? Very, very meagre in comparison to their peers before that. So I think in order to have an interest in summer, this is what I'll say. In order to have an interest in summer, they need to sell. They don't need to sell. They could part ways with a Harry Kane or a Christian Eriksen. Harry Kane, £200 million. Are you going to get what you've already seen out of Harry Kane for the next 4 or 5 years? I fear we may have seen the best of him. Recurrent injuries might have taken its toll on Harry Kane. I hope I'm wrong. By all means.
He is injury prone.
By all means. But if he keeps picking up these niggling injuries, he's still going to get between 15 and 20 Premier League goals, which is hugely valuable to a side like Spurs. And he's in the top 3 number 9s in the world for me. But if you can get 200 million for him, I'd strongly consider that as a fair to generous bid.
The whole of North London, well, the white half of North London is crying right now.
Yeah, but I mean,
what have you done, Chris?
150 million for Christian Eriksen. I don't think that they're going to get anywhere near that. Maybe 100 to 120 is kind of what Levy has said he'd be comfortable with. Also feels quite generous at this point. Maybe they can go get someone like Martin Odegaard, an upcoming number 10 who, like,
that's exciting.
Like Dele Alli, is extremely dynamic and contribute on the defensive end, on the attacking end, and looks like Real Madrid want to part ways with him. But that is the only feasible way I see something interesting happening at Spurs this summer. Like, other than that, I think they just need to bring in. I mean, we know who they need, don't we? Look at that midfield; it's actually ravaged of kind of talent in the deep line playmaker positions, and I'm not sure Pochettino's can keep overcompensating with his excellent sort of man management system. So something has to happen at Spurs, but something has to be the catalyst for it.
What did he say earlier this year? He wants washing machines and keeps on getting given dishwashers even. Pat, if you're Daniel Levy, 200 million on the table from, I don't know, Real Madrid for Harry Kane, what are you saying?
It depends if I can get a replacement in. I mean, like, I like Heung-min Son, but I mean, he's not actually a centre forward.
No.
Like, he's much better when he's got a little bit more space. He's kind of in that half space between the centre back and the full back. I still want another striker there, and even still, you need somebody to back up. So it kind of depends. Am I going to have to go and then spend all my money on getting somebody in who can also contribute at a similar level? Besides, it looks like Eriksen's going to go. Though I actually disagree. I think if they were to win the Champions League, I think it would make it a lot easier to convince Eriksen to stay and sign a new contract. And I think that it would actually change the way that they're seen by a lot of young players around Europe. Regardless, if they keep Pochettino, they're always going to be, to some extent, a destination. I would happily want to go to Spurs if I were a young player looking to develop my game. But they are going to need to replace Alderweireld. They are going to need to get in probably at least 2 or 3 central midfielders. My issue with Spurs, actually, is often not their identification of talent. Like, we've heard rumours in the last few windows about it was Florian Grillitsch of Hoffenheim in January.
You rate him, don't you?
It was Tielemans before that. And when you actually look at these players, they fit into a kind of similar profile, and they're really good targets. Like Tielemans, really good progressive passes and runs, really good defensive output. I actually think Tielemans is top range. I think Tielemans is
in terms of price bracket is what I mean.
Sure, but Tielemans is one of the best young midfield prospects around, I think, and would be ideal for them. So if in the summer he's going for 40 mil and it looks like Leicester are going to get him, Spurs absolutely need to go and take him. Grillitsch, it looks like he could leave for maybe 30, 40 mil. He's somebody they should go for. So often the issue is not finding the player, the issue is pulling the trigger. And I think that they will have more money to spend at the end of this season.
We saw, it was a couple of weeks ago, they released their finances and they were the best they've ever been, I think.
By virtue.
But I think that was in 17-18 before the stadium move.
Yeah, by virtue of not spending in this transfer market, I think it was a profit of 164 million, but that probably gets you 3 players that help you compete for the title.
And gets you 1/10 of a stadium.
And the reason I say I don't think it'd change many people's perception of Spurs at current is because, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, they're standing under Pochettino. Obviously, he's got incrementally better. It's the best it's ever been at the moment. Is because they're still not going to be title contenders next year in the Premier League. Is my predominant line of thought. So I think people view them very highly at the moment. That's not what I was really intimating. But I think if they were to win the competition, I don't think people would see, here's a team that are going to sustain this level of excellence owing to the other teams around them. I think if Pochettino was to win the Champions League with Spurs this campaign, that would be an incredible feat given the deficit of talent in comparison to the top teams around them. And we're talking, 4 or 5 teams because they've still got a very, very talented squad. Maybe not, the depth isn't necessarily there, is it? But I still think if they won the Champions League, that the top players go to Manchester City, Liverpool, Barcelona, or Real Madrid, and that might be disheartening to the very best players there, I guess, or Pochettino's looking to bring, to add to that success.
Yeah, I think, if they win the Champions League, I think it instantly goes in the top 3 Champions League wins of all time. in terms of that squad and the amount of spending they've had, especially considering the current, sort of landscape of these top teams and what they're spending regularly. I can only think of Liverpool in 2005 of probably winning a Champions League with a worse squad. Off the top of my head, I know Chelsea had lots of players out in their 2012 final win as well. But yeah, it would be incredible. So that's our answer on Spurs. And let's move on to Blade Thunderbolt's question. It's a similar sort of question, but we're going over to Spain now. And he said, who should Atletico Madrid buy in the summer to challenge Barcelona for the title? Now, Pat, I was reading this morning that Atletico Madrid are looking quite heavily at Icardi. Do you think that'd be a good signing for them?
I don't really get the point of it. Like, it looks like they're going to make Morata's move permanent, and Morata's been very good for them, exactly as we predicted he would be. He's actually more mobile than Icardi as well. So, I don't know. I feel like the fact that Morata's doing well, I would probably just stick with that for now.
With Diego Costa so injury prone, don't you think they'll need 2 top strikers if they want to challenge for a title?
Well, are we assuming they lose Griezmann?
No, I'm assuming that Diego Costa just gets aged out.
But even still, then you've got Morata, you've got Griezmann, and then after that, you've got people like Correa who can contribute. You would hope that Lamar contributes a little bit more. I mean, the thing is, when they're scouting for attackers, they actually kind of have quite a good situation because they can take attackers off smaller sides and know that they'll contribute kind of well. So, for instance, when we were talking about Wilfried Zaha in the office and about how he'd fit into a bigger side, where you have all the ball and you don't have space to run at. Atleti don't tend to have that problem. They often play on the counter-attack quite a lot, and particularly, obviously, in the Champions League, but they even do it a fair amount in La Liga. And so you could see that sort of player, somebody with extreme pace who can simply, run away from defences, really getting some traction there. I mean, the issue is going to be in midfield, right? I don't think they'll lose Saul because Saul's got a contract forever, and he wants to stay. But it looks like Rodri's going to go. It looks like he's going to go to Man City. And so the question is how they replace him, because he's been sensational for him this season.
Do you think there's any sort of pot exchange deal with Manchester City, or like first option on some peripheral talent at Manchester City?
Imagine if it was a Rodri and Sane deal. Ooh.
I mean, Sane would actually be like the dream for someone like them, right? He's the best of that type. But I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, unless maybe they send a youngster or two that way, but we just never really see these deals actually happen, except in Italy, where it seems to happen constantly. So maybe they'll go back to Villarreal, where they got Rodri, and they'll look at Santiago Cáceres, who replaced him last season and actually looks very similar as well. Or maybe
Chukwueze
they could, what as a winger.
It's a little bit raw, Chukwueze.
But I think he has the potential to be a very, very good player. Admittedly, extremely one-footed.
And does shoot from all sorts of places as well.
But that's just young.
I think his decision making is actually pretty good. Like,
questionable.
My issue, I think again, he's an example of this, right? Like, you might say that for another side, like a Man City or an Arsenal or a Liverpool, like, he might need to develop his ability on the ball, his technical ability. Whereas for Atleti, I think he could probably slot in and be quite useful already. But to me, I think, a wide forward. Nicola Pepe would work really well for them, actually, if a bigger club doesn't go for him. But then I'd really think about the midfield and also what I do in the defence.
Yeah, Chris, I was just about to ask you, because they've obviously lost Luka Hernandez already. It looks like Diego Godin's about to go to Inter Milan, although that still hasn't been confirmed.
They need to replace Felipe Luis.
They need,
really
there's a lot of issues in that defence. Chris, who would you suggest that Simeone looks at?
It's tough, and I've not really had an extensive thought about that question, but you went back against Diego Simeone really finding defensive reinforcements. But it does make the decision, especially with Felipe Luis, to let Johnny Otto and to let Bichalko go to win, that seem even stranger at this juncture. And I imagined with Luka Hernandez going to Bayern, that was purely down to fee, and they don't really have a long-term solution for that, but back themselves to maybe do so for half the amount they sold him for, because it is with the system you can hide, I guess, or make up for a kind of talent deficit, can't you, Diego Simeone?
Yeah.
I mean, David Luiz's contract is up at the end of the season. Is he maybe a little bit too erratic, a bit too much of a flair player for Diego Simeone? Perhaps so. Christensen at Chelsea, massively fallen out of favour. I think there's a few players in that squad. Willian might even be an option for them on the wide right, moving forward, who won't want to play under Sarri. It's difficult, isn't it? Hermoso, who plays for Espanyol, I've been really impressed with his numbers this season. They could potentially pick him up for that 30 to 40 million pound bracket we were discussing before. Vallejo, these talented defensive youngsters at Real Madrid, are they gonna, gonna get the chance? Teo Hernandez, how's he fared on loan? Might be able to bring him back. I'm really not sure, mate. It's a very good question.
It is, isn't it? Another name that I always put in the hat for these ones, but no one really ever agrees with me, is Marc Bartra. I think he was excellent when he went to Dortmund. Obviously, he had that terrible incident with a terrorist attack. Wanted to come back. He's now at Real Betis. He's been great this year.
Yeah, he was in player of the team of the year last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
After playing for 6 months.
And the reason he's never gone for a move abroad again is supposedly homesickness. So he'd be a great pickup for Atleti. But
he's 29 though.
He is 29.
And I do feel like he's holding Betis's whole defence together with the way that Setien plays. So probably worth an awful lot to them. But
yeah, fair enough. Well, that's our take on Atletico Madrid. And I have to say, we probably got it slightly wrong on Atletico Madrid this year. I don't think they've been as good going forward as we probably expected. I mean, most of us thought they could potentially do a title challenge. But we've been taught wrong by Messi. Never bet against Messi. Put us on our place, Lionel, didn't you? But let's roll straight into the end board now. Chris, what should the good people on Football Daily go do now?
So the latest Stat Wars episode went live yesterday. It was me versus John Babb. Of course, you've got another one to look forward to tomorrow. We Need to Talk has gone live on Football Daily, and there is non-league vlogs and personal masterminds galore on FDFC.
Yes. Thanks very much for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye.